What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of All Things Super. I am one of your hosts, Spider, and I am joined by Mr. VIP, Frankie Washington. How are you doing today, sir?
I am infinitely awesome. Thank you for asking. How are you?
Are you okay?
That's old. That's old. That's old. That's old school WWE. Oh, can't wait to Sunday. get you in the ring. Oh, it's always on Sunday. This Sunday. I'm like, get mitts on you.
I wonder what made them like, because were boxing pay-per-views normally on Sundays too? Because I know the wrestling pay-per-views are always on Sunday. So I wonder what made Sunday that day that they decided that this is going to be the pay-per-view day. Anytime there's a big fight, there's a big, competition, is going to be on Sunday night. Is that because they felt like that's...
Dad got paid Friday. That's why. You got paid Friday. You cash your check Friday. You probably go get your necessities. Sunday, you want to see what's going on. You got to pay for that.
I was wondering if
it up Saturday.
I was wondering if it's because, Friday night was like, people go out Friday night, they go out Saturday night. Sunday night is the night that most people traditionally, I would say, are home because you got work on Monday morning, you got school on Monday morning, so everybody's at home. Everybody's at home on a Sunday night. So I guess that makes sense. Have it all that Sunday night so that the whole family watch WrestleMania 18.
Or 19 or 20, 21 or 22.
I don't know what number they're on right now.
I just know if there's that many Super Bowls, why can't there be that many WrestleManias?
Nobody's saying that there can't be. I'm just saying that I don't know what number they're on because I haven't been following it.
This Sunday! I don't know. It was just nostalgia, I think. Well, great question. I don't know. I would think because Dad's got paid on Friday and family's home on Sunday.
Who knows? But if you didn't know, this is All Things Super, where we take a piece of superpowered TV, movie, even trailers. We watch them, we react to them, we break them down, we review them, and we answer the question, is it super?
Is it?
Is it?
This Sunday, it'll be super. No, just joke. I don't know, man.
But if you like,
well, we do like reading the comments.
I didn't even get to that part yet.
Oh, yeah.
If you like that, you can subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you can be notified when we have new episodes that come out. If you want the audio version of the podcast, just follow us on any of your major podcast streaming services. Just search for All Things Super. And if you want to join in on the conversation, you can tweet at us at ATSuperPod. And now you get to say,
we like reading the comments.
There you go. But we do like reading the comments.
I was going to say this Sunday.
But for this episode, we are reviewing episode 4 of the Prime Video series, The Peripheral. So we're on episode 4 now. We're halfway through the season. We got 8 episodes this season. We just had episode 4. Mr. VIP Frankie Washington, what are your thoughts on episode 4 of The Peripheral?
You know what? I'm not going to lie to you guys. I actually watched this more than twice. I went back, I watched it. I watched it when it aired. I went back, I watched it again. And then I watched it again after that. And I'm gonna say this episode spoke to me deep down in the what are we doing variety. Because I feel like this is one of the weaker episodes. I feel like we've established who the bad guys are. We've established who the good guys are. We established who the special forces are and the other special forces are. The lines are drawn in the sand, as you say. And we now know who are we rooting for and rooting against. There's some still questions that need to be answered, but we're kind of more at least me, I am trying to figure out overall more of what's going on. I feel like we're starting to stray away from the storylines, and that's normally something to expect kind of later on in seasons. You see it late in seasons because they're trying to figure out where we're going with our story. I mean, usually you have 3-part structures. You know, this person goes here and they show how they're changed, and then they show maybe that change wasn't worth changing, or they're going to hold on to the belief, or they're going to revert back, and then your outcome, and then you fully came to a conclusion with your character, story structure, and arcs, and things of that nature. I feel like now we were having that, and then we parallel sidetracked to kind of do what we're doing here in the story, and I'm wondering why do we do that? At least this is how I look at it, and I'm looking at it from a storytelling standpoint versus necessarily character driven situational shifts. Does that make sense, Spider?
Not the word situational shifts, but everything else there, yeah.
First of all, I wrote that word in crayon, so it's written.
Well, you know,
I didn't
what?
say it was right.
Nobody can take that away from you. And I'll commend
crayon.
you. I'll commend you for getting through all of that and not giving off any spoilers before we hit the spoiler along.
Hey, man, I'm proud of myself. Hey, this deserves a drink.
Just don't ask what's in the cup.
That was for all the SLMR fans. What? That's never mind. Don't worry about it. For all the audio listeners, go to video. Try to tell y'all all the time. The video is much funner. I think Spider's killing me with these looks that he's giving.
Listen,
like, you know, this guy.
I will agree with you on the point that this episode sort of took a turn away from the narrative that they've been following in the first 3 episodes. It's a very different energy. It's just, in my opinion, it felt like a filler episode. A filler episode in the sense to where it's not something that I think could be taken out. I know there was a lot of things that happened within the episode that could probably have been taken out, but this episode seems to have served exclusively the purpose of revealing exposition. It seems like a lot of what happened in this episode was just explaining who people were, what their motivations are, and explaining why, you know, they're doing what they're doing as to what the next steps for the rest of the season are going to be. But so I'll say that it's not an episode that I think we could have gotten away with not having, but it is definitely far removed from the rest of the stuff that we've been seeing this season.
Okay, so let's talk about it then. What information that we gather from this episode that we need?
Okay, so before we do that, we have to do one thing first.
That is your official spoiler one, and if you haven't watched Amazon Prime's The Peripheral, then you might want to stop, go back and watch that, episode 4, and see if you want to catch up with that first before you come back here. Mm-hmm. But if you're at this point now in the video, you pretty much like us more than the show. Thank you. Appreciate that. Because we about the smallest thing.
So to answer your question, what do we get in this episode that we can't do without, right? So we got an explanation as to why in the future, why these sort of different factions are against each other, right? So we know that Lev hired Alita. We don't know exactly what he hired her for. Well, up until this episode, we don't know what he hired her for, but we know that Alita worked for the Research Institute. And so now we see that we have our bad guy, or I should say, our villain, our antagonist, Charisse. Charisse is the person who works at the Research Institute, Dr. Newland. Again, want to make sure that I put respect on her name, Dr. Newland. Because they even had the conversation when she met Lev at his house. You know, he was having tea in the backyard. She said, "May I call you Lev?" And he was like, "It's not a problem. May I call you Charisse?" She's like, "I prefer if you didn't." So she's like, "I'm doctor. You are going to call me by doctor." So
Respect them titles.
right, exactly. And so during this conversation between Dr. Newland and Lev, they sort of just broke it down as to who are the players in this future world after the jackpot, right? So we have three. She said we're living in a house with three walls, or a room with three walls. So one wall we have the Klept. The Klept is essentially sort of this mafioso type organization who run, you know, everything. They keep everything organized from the, I should say, less legal standpoint, right? Because anything that's
You know what
happening
that means?
as far as, you know, black arms dealings, you know, laundering money, you know, anything that's shady, anything that's not above the law or not, you know, legal in a sense, the Klept
Hey,
basically, you know, they take care
the
of all of
get
that
it
and they
done
manage it.
guys.
Right, the get it done guys that don't ask questions about it. And so we also understand that there's the Met, the Metropolitan. This is the police force, and we've seen these police androids sort of roaming around. We saw in the last episode where Flynn was kind of just walking around London, but because of an algorithm, it deemed her to be suspicious because she was walking around in a pattern which showed that either, you know, she was lost, or, you know, obviously she might be casing a joint or something like that, looking to do something, you know, illegal. So the Met is your police force. And then we have the Research Institute. So the Research Institute is this organization who, because of the peace and prosperity that the Klept had organized after the jackpot and the lawfulness that the Met is orchestrating on the city, the Research Institute is able to take that and augment society with different pieces of technology, different advancements in research. They're able to ensure that the way of life that these people are living stays the way that it is, that they don't go back into a situation that happened with the jackpot, which we'll find out exactly what happened in the jackpot later on this episode. But so Dr. Newland basically explains that because we have this three-walled room, you know, should anyone overstep their bounds, it could mean instability, which could then in turn mean the end of the world. So we see how these different parts play on each other. And as much as what it would seem like Dr. Newland may hate Lev or be against Lev, in a sense, we don't know what Lev's standing is in the Klept. We just know that he's part of the Klept. But
Yes.
obviously he's of some stature because we see he's wealthy. He has a lot of money. He can pay people to do things. He even said at the beginning of this episode, that room where Wilf and Flynn were fighting Daniel and the other android that he had with them, he was saying that, well, Wilf, you know, you have to prepare because you might get in trouble because your DNA, I'm assuming, is all over that room. And he said, I could send in a team to go clean it up, but should they be caught in the act, it could get traced back to me, and I'm not going to have that. So you're basically on your
There
own
you
at this
go.
point.
There you
So
go.
obviously he has
So,
money, he has
so wait,
influence, he
wait,
has power.
but I want to just say shout out to the actual model of toast that we use for this whole demonstration of the
The toast with
stability.
the crust cut off.
With the crust cut off, easily you could have put some jam on that, made that like a little sunny side or something. But we kept it simple with toast, and I want everybody to know appreciate that visual aid for those who did that. But yeah, we laying the groundwork. So still in all, did we need that at this point? Was that something that we needed?
I feel like it's better to have had it early than having dialogue explaining, oh, the CLEP did this, the Research Institute did that, the Myth did this in episode 6. And we're still like, for those who are just casually watching the show, well, what is the CLEP? Because I've heard them say the CLEP in previous episodes, but as they never explain exactly what the CLEP was. So, you know, because we got when Dr. Newland was first talking to Daniel and they were talking about Wilf and they were like, oh, he's the klep. And so it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? I'm thinking kleptomaniac, somebody that steals stuff, so I didn't know if that had something to do with it, but now we get a understanding that the klept is a name for a group or organization. So was it extremely necessary? Was it vital to the story structure of the show? Maybe not, but I do appreciate that there is some explanation as to who is doing what and what are the motivations for these characters.
What else you couldn't have? What else you appreciate them giving to you in this episode versus later on?
The jackpot, because this is something that we've talked about. One of the questions that Flynn had is exactly what happened to her world, right? What happened to the world in the past to where it's produced the world that we have now in 2099 or 2100. So we get an explanation. We get going through the episode, we see that because of not only the effects that the I guess the harness, the helmet, whatever it is that Flynn's putting on her head in order to get into or transfer her consciousness to the future, the effects that this is having on her body, on her brain. So she's dealing with, she's dealing with the loss of her motor functions in her hand, and also because of the fight that she had with Daniel. And Daniel said, the damage is, it's lingering. So just because this is not your body, this is still affecting your brain inside this body. So even though when I hit you with my, pulse gun in your side, it's not physically shaking up your intestines, but your brain in that body feels that pain anyway, even though your intestines are fine. It's kind of like phantom pains, I would imagine,
But no, not necessarily, because you seen when she had her seizure episode, she began to get bruised. So the mind is starting to believe that trauma is real, and it's starting to take a physical toll on her.
Right. I guess, because I was thinking when she first saw that, it seemed like she had popped blood vessels in her eyes. She's looking in the mirror and she's looking at it, and her like half her eye is all red, and then she kind of looks away and then looks back and it's gone. And so I'm just kind of wondering why they made that like a switch and then back. But then we could see when I guess her heart rate started elevating because she was upset with Burton, because Burton and so Tommy shows up at the house. Tommy's asking questions, and
of course, but Tommy came to the house as a friend.
Right, Tommy came to the house as a friend. He said,
came in his plain clothes.
He said, "There's no cruiser, regular clothes. So I want to know that I'm coming to you as a friend, not
just
a cop."
Friend.
And so Tommy, just trying to figure out what's going on. He said, "Hey, I saw you at the bar shaking hands with Pickett." He said, "That's not normally a good look." So I just want to know, what's going on. You can talk to me. I am your friend. We grew up together. And of course, Burton lied, said everything's good, no problem. There's nothing to worry about. And so Tommy asked Flynn.
Listen, Burton ain't crazy. Burton know that he's still the police.
Right.
At the end of the day, he will do what police do. You can say that friend all.
And so Burton even tells him this. He said, "We have a pile of bodies buried in our backyard. We tell Tommy everything, then suddenly Tommy's going to remember that he's a cop. And, we have to answer for all of that." And it's like the longer it goes on, the worse that it's going to be, because had they just gone to the police in the first place, They could have said, "Oh well, they came on our property. They were shooting at us, so we defended ourselves and we killed them." But now, the fact that they've killed these men and they've buried them on their own land and they're lying about it,
Mm.
it's not looking great for the
Makes
Fishers.
you makes you a serial killer. Serializing more than one. So
Um, but
not a good look.
so because Flynn is experiencing these side effects from the machine, they go to the doctor. And but before they go to the doctor, Flynn is trying to convince Burton that she's fine, nothing's wrong, and Burton's telling
After she
her,
has episode.
well, no, this is before she has episode. But Burton is telling her that he doesn't want her to go back into the machine, and Flynn is like, no, I have to. We have to figure this out. But Burton is like, I don't think that because you're doing this, but I feel like you're not thinking properly. And so Flynn takes that as, oh, because I'm a woman, you think I'm getting emotional. And he's like, well, no, it's not because you're a woman, but because he reaches into the trash can and he shows the little 3D printed model of Tommy that she took
That's right.
because they got the order wrong at the 3D printing shop in the first episode. And so he's like, you're obviously too invested in this. Your emotions are invested in this more than, just your desire to figure out what it is that's going on. And so Flynn accuses Burton of going through her trash, flips out at him. He's like, you know what? I'm and I'm leave. And he goes to walk out and she goes after him and she starts, getting heated, getting upset. She's angry. She's like, how could you accuse me of all of
Emotion.
this? And she's just laying into Burton. And while she's doing that, her eye just starts turning black. Like it looked like somebody punched her in the face. All of that damage that she experienced,
Mm.
she's starting to visibly, appear that way. And so Burton's trying to get her attention, and then she falls out, and then she, has her seizure because Burton was saying that they should go to. No, and then this was after she had her seizure. They're sitting in the parking lot at the clinic, and so Burton is like, are you going to be okay with this? And we find out that Tommy's fiance, whose name is not listed on the casting list. Wow, really?
That's what I wouldn't have said. I wouldn't have said that. I would have put Tommy's fiance's name on the casting list. Why would they do such a
Dee
thing?
Dee, that's her name, Dee Dee.
That's what I wouldn't have said.
So Tommy's fiance Dee Dee runs the clinic, it turns out. And so for a small town, it looked like this was just like it looked like it was a small clinic, but for them to have
Starting to get that I know what you did last summer vibes on this thing, Small town, all friends, close circle, knitting groups.
that's not at all what I was about to say.
Chocolate.
That I was not going in that direction at all. I mean, yeah, you have a point. I was just going to say it just seemed like it was just a small clinic, but they still had like CT scan machines and MRI machines, and that's not something that you normally see in small clinics. You normally see those in
Somebody
hospitals.
donated that. That's okay. We
I mean, it could have been
all
Pickett.
donations.
Pickett could have funded that. He could have put some money into all of that.
Pickett got a huge pool, so I think it ain't nothing for him. And he fits in it. So don't swim in it if you go to his house.
Yeah. So
What?
they go to the clinic. I didn't need to recall that scene back in my brain again. But so Flynn and Burton are talking in the truck, and he said that, because Dee Dee's working here, I don't know, just want to make sure that you're all right about it. And Flynn tells Burton, when we were young and I found the weed that was in the attic. He's like, what did you do? He was like, I flushed down the toilet. And she said, well, what did I do? He said, and what else did you do?
He said,
we'll never speak of this again. And she was like, and that's right. And I haven't brought it up until today. So obviously Flynn is trying to let Burton know I can keep a secret. I'm not going to just be like, blah, 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 and just blurt everything out. And of course, Burton is accusing her of this because she told Billy Ann everything. So he's like, are you going to be
This
able
is
to keep
true.
this to yourself? Because if you don't, Dee Dee's going to tell Tommy. Tommy's going to come investigate. We all going to jail. So Burton, even though he's trying to he's trying to make sure that Flynn doesn't blurt out everything. He's
Mhm.
also wanting to tell Dee Dee because in his mind, he thinks that because Flynn won't listen to him and not go back into the sim, maybe she'll listen
Headset.
to the doctor. Maybe she'll listen to medical advice. And so Flynn begs Burton not to tell her because Flynn knows that Dee Dee's going to tell her not to wear it anymore. So they get into the clinic. Dee Dee's explaining, this seems like this because you had a seizure, but normally you would have like some type of marker or something, but everything on your test so far looked normal. And so she said, has anything changed in your life recently? Any types of stress, any types of trauma or anything like that? And Flynn is about to say no. Burton jumps in and says,
How?
she's trying this new sim, this new game. It's a little bit
Snitch.
realistic, and
Snitching.
just basically not revealing everything that's going on, but basically saying that because of this new sim, this is when all of,
What's going
Flynn's
on?
symptoms have
And of
started.
course, the doctor is going to say,
Stop wearing
"Well,
it.
you need to stop wearing that immediately."
Right.
Problem solved.
But
Doctors.
so because of that, Connor and Burton and their other cousin Leon. Leon was the one that won the $250,000 in the lottery. And so they're all in the trailer.
Lucky
They're
guy.
trying to figure out who is going to go into the sim and talk to these people. And we're talking about Lev and Wilf and Ash and all of them because they're upset now. The guys are upset because obviously this technology is hurting Flint. So we need to go
Of
talk to
course.
them and they need to give us some answers and they need to pay for what it is that they're doing. And so,
Yeah, we're gonna tunnel through of technology we don't even understand and risk it all for Flynn, even though her scan says she's okay.
right. But so Connor ends up going into ends
Well,
up putting
shout
on the
out to
helmet.
Connor.
Shout out to Connor. Is he's
Yeah,
been sober, he's been helping out. So he goes in, he shows up. Ash is brushing or combing the peripheral's hair, and Connor wakes up in Flynn's peripheral, turns around, it's like, who the fuck are you? And so Ash is like, oh, this is not Flynn, something's going wrong. And Connor
something's wrong.
immediately tries to escape, but in the midst of him doing that, they're able to shut the connection off, and so they get the peripheral back in, and Connor wants to go back in. And while they're doing this, Flynn is in another VR sim. She's basically looking through old
All
family videos,
movies,
old home movies.
right?
And while she's doing that, Wolf shows up into the home movie virtual reality sim. And so they have a discussion. Wolf tells Flynn that,
Now,
hey, what's up?
can we explain that? Can we explain how Wolf is able to show up in this totally separate sim, not connected to the base sim at all?
I would imagine the same way that they were able to, like Daniel was able to get into the Little Havana sim and go talk to Pickett. I mean, they could just pop into any virtual reality sim that they want to, I guess.
Hmm. Okay.
Because I mean, they
Must be
they
going
have to have
through.
some type of way to contact the past because they did the same thing when they talked to the pharmacy and got that medicine that that cured their mom. So
They're
it may not
clearly
even
on
be
some
just them accessing
quantum
the sim.
communication.
Yeah. But so Wolf tells Flynn, like, hey, your brother and Connor, they jumped into your peripheral and they told us about, what's going on with your with your health, with how your body's reacting to it. Flynn again still tries to say that she's fine, and she's like, "Well, is the helmet doing this to me?" And Wolf is like, "We don't know, but we'll figure it out." And Flynn tells him, "I think that's the first
Goddamn,
time
Wolf.
that we've ever talked, and I don't think that you're lying to me." So it just seems like, because of course Wolf has his own motives for what he's doing, because obviously Lev wants to find a leader. Wolf wants to find a leader, but he wants to find her as his sister, not just as somebody that he's been hired to find.
Well, wait a minute. Take that back, because at the beginning of the episode, what Lev is his name? The rich
Yeah,
aristocrat? Lev. That's what I was trying to say. Said that Alita took out her chip
right,
and she won't survive long without it
right, without her boosted immunity.
because boosted them up. Thank you. So he's more than willing to run the clock out and let her just kind of,
Right.
which Wolf don't like. So now the game is really on. But the question is, do we not know this? Were the stakes not established already? I mean, the resolutions for getting answers that her CAT scans are fine. I bet she still is going to have the involuntary grip kung fu that she's going to have to deal with for a long time, because they don't know what the answer is, what's going on with her. So now it's a race against the clock, because this is going to keep happening. And I would hope that she would not get paralysis of any kind, because I can tell you that sucks. So you want to be mindful of your health, but at the same time, they obviously want her versus Connor in the body. And remember, we talked about this last episode. The answers of what they're looking for, we hit the spoiler warning already again. So if these theories come true, they're not theories, they're just predictions that Spider and I just happen to hit you up with. You're welcome. The stuff that they're looking for is in her mind.
Right.
So no one else can actually be in the peripheral but her when it comes down to retrieving that information. So we really didn't resolve this because it's deeper now. And I guess we had to have the episode to show that it was deeper now.
Mm-hmm.
So now this is killing her. We don't know what to do. Pickett's coming. We don't know when he'll strike.
Well,
because
we
we're
haven't
still in
even
information gathering.
we still haven't had Jasper actually talk to him yet. So we don't, as of right now, Pickett still doesn't know anything.
Right. So we're still in information gathering mode. Loose lips sink ships. We already told the beans. We're kind of waiting to see if that's going to be a factor. I still kind of stand by what I said. We're kind of here, and then we went this way instead of like continuing to go this way, if that makes sense. We stopped and went, hey, look at this. And I'm looking at this and I'm wondering this is why we need effects. So I can lightning with the Tesla. Anyway, long time viewers know what I'm talking about. Anyway, what I'm saying is, why are we expanding in this? What is the takeaway from this, right? You see me asking the same question. You know what? I know I'm not coming through clearly. Hold on. Why we did that? Look at that. See how that works? Why we did that? Why are we doing this?
Like
this
I said,
episode.
This episode is giving us the exposition. It's explaining what happened. Like you said, the time between Flynn and 2032 or whatever to where Wolf and Lev and Dr. Newland are in 2099, a lot has happened in between that time to where the entire structure of the world has changed. So this episode served the purpose to explain to us what happened in that time and how the world is shaped in the future from where we are right now. Now, like you said, why did we get this right now in this episode? That I can't explain. I don't know why the showrunners, the directors, the writers
Yeah.
opted to explain it at this point in
Give
time.
us a weird flashback at this current point in time with Wolf and his sister.
But I feel like we got the flashback of Wolf and his sister last episode when they both got adopted. And so that gave us the explanation as to where or why or who, I should say, Wolf was able to go to try to track down Alita. He went to their adoptive mother. And so we saw that connection because they both got adopted together. So that flashback paid off to where we ended up later on in the show as to how they were able to at least track down some of Alita's latest whereabouts. This flashback at the beginning of this episode with young Wolf and young Alita, it showed that in a sense Wolf is trying to prove himself because he obviously they were on the street at some point, and I would imagine that this is before they got picked up. But they were on the streets, just living in the abandoned buses and all this other kind of stuff, and they're basically pilfering food, and so it's going into this communal like pot. All of the kids go run out, they pick up this food, they put it in for everybody, and then they divide it up evenly. So the older kid, obviously he's running everything. He said that Wolf's not pulling his share, so they're ready to basically just like, he doesn't get to eat because he didn't contribute. And so Alita, who's always have seemed to stick up for Wolf, as we saw in the flashback when they were at the orphanage, she said that, I pulled my weight enough for both of us. And the big kid was like, fine, he can have your share then. And so they sit there and, Wolf kind of seems down on himself, and Alita tries to cheer him up. And so they spot outside the window. It looks like there's this sort of Red Cross
help center.
This aid tent.
Yeah,
right. And so it seems that they're giving out free food. So the big kid says, well, Wolf, this is your chance to pull your weight, make up for what you didn't bring before. And Alita tries to tell him, like, no, don't go out there. It seems like a trap. Kids are getting snatched up. I don't want to get snatched up, so don't do it. Wolf tries to prove himself. So he goes out, he looks at it. It seems like everything's on the up and up. He throws a rock over to where this truck and his tent is with a whole bunch of supplies.
It glitched at first, and then he had to look at it again. That's why he threw the rock, and it was like,
right.
Oh snap!
Right, it's a projection.
You hit somebody with that rock, and now they coming to see who threw it. Run!
But basically, these guys or these people in hazmat suits go running after Wolf. Wolf shouting for Alita. Alita gets off the bus. She's looking for Wolf.
Why he gonna do that? Why he do that?
Because that's. It seems like the dynamic because he couldn't see because it started getting foggy. And so he couldn't find his way back to the bus. And so
he probably would have. He just closed his mouth and just ran. They didn't even know the bus was there. They can't see. You wanted to get caught, Wolf.
I don't know about all of that.
I'm just saying it make it make sense. Because if you knew what the bus was,
kids aren't rational. If you have
we
a
just
kid,
go blame it on kids.
You have a kid and
they are survivors.
No, they're not. You drop a child who is not used to that type of situation and you put them in that situation, the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to shout out for the person that they feel is their support. Most children, it is their parents, right? So you have these two kids who are growing up on the street, and it seems like that Alita is the one that has been protecting Wolf. So he's afraid.
I agree.
So he's trying to figure out where to go. So of course he shouts out for Alita.
Should have kept your mouth closed, dude, because Alita got caught.
Alita got caught. Alita got snatched up. Wolf got snatched up. But like I said, so I feel like that flashback served the purpose as to Wolf wanting to make sure that he survives, because we get while Flynn and Wolf are talking there in Flynn's home movie, and Flynn said, I've been researching, trying to figure out exactly who, I'm dealing with. I didn't find anything on you. I did happen to find some, Lev, what's his last name? Zubov. So she said, I did find something about Lev Zubov, but he died like 3 weeks ago. His entire family. House set on fire, they all burned to death. And so Wilf, don't know if he knew or was aware of this. Well, I don't think he was aware of it, but he said that this has nothing to do with the Lev in my time. It's not connected. It's purely circumstantial. All this other kind of stuff. But again, for Wills wanting to make sure he survives, the first thing he does after he gets back is he goes to Lev and he lets him know. He's like, hey, look, I don't know if you know this, but back in the 2030s, your whole family is killed. And Lev laughs at him. Lev laughs at him. He's like, you know what? Sometimes I can forget how kind you are. And he's like, I think that sometimes you forget too. But Lev basically, again, giving out exposition. He said, what do you think I hired a leader for? And Will said, I don't know. You made it clear that was none of my business. Lev hired a leader. Alita was working in the research institute. We already found out in a couple episodes ago that she was working with Stubbs. So Lev hired a leader to try to research and find out how the Klept could create their own Stubbs. So how they can go back and access the past, create their own branch timelines, so that way they can experiment with different things in those stubs, because those stubs don't matter. Because those stubs at that current point in time, they don't exist. We go back in the past, we make some changes, it creates a stub. Now we can go back into that stub, do whatever that we need to do. If it causes world annihilation, then oh well, that stub is done for. That doesn't have an impact to our timeline. And so he said that Lev said that his brother Alexei was a pharmacist or worked in a pharmaceutical company, did something with pharmaceuticals. He created medicine that they wanted to test. That medicine was the medicine that they gave to Flynn for her mom. So he said that, we can't do human testing here because, of course, they don't find it ethical. So we want to create stubs in order for us to do tests, see if it works, and then if it does, then great. Now we can bring this back to our timeline and we can distribute it however we want to distribute it. Again, the Klept is mafia. They don't have to go through legal channels like the government in order to distribute pharmaceuticals. It's basically like what Pickett is doing, making his own medicine and then giving it out to whoever is able to afford it. So again, this episode was a lot of exposition, a lot of explaining things, but we get a little bit more information as to what exactly is going on and what's the motivation for these people. I mean, are you saying that I'm wrong? I'm not saying that it was needed, but I'm just saying.
No, I'm not saying that you're wrong at all. And that's the question that I was saying. Could it have gone a different way? Was it needed to be explained that way? I didn't think that I understand everything that you said. And you said it beautifully, by the way. Just want you to know that. This is very articulate.
Thank you.
But overall, story-wise, I'm thinking to myself, could we have said what we said better? And did we move the needle? And I just felt like the needle was moving and then it stopped. Listen, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. You want to establish your rules and regulations in your state somewhere. And like you said, we're at the halfway point now. So where better to lay them if you're not going to lay them in the beginning? Somewhere down the line, you got to lay them because you gave us a lot of questions and a lot of stuff that was going on. Is it a sim? It's not a sim. She's in a sim of her brother, and it's not her, and now it is her. And this guy kissed her, and he likes her. But does he love her? And is it a love story? And really, why is she there? And why does London look this way? Her mom's blind. How she go blind? She has a cancer. She's gonna die. Now she can see. Brent got the glizzy. Oh my God, what's going on? Hickett's coming to kill him. And then it's like,
Burton. Why do you
okay,
keep
he's
calling
in
him?
hands, she's in hands.
Why do you keep calling him Clint? I mean Brent.
He has a Brent. He has a Brent face. That's okay.
He
He's
has a
very
Brent
handsome.
face.
Well, that's a compliment. I'm just saying he's a handsome man. He can
Shout
be
out to all the
called Brent.
Brents.
So there's a lot going on in the beginning. So now that that's cooling off, I guess this is the best place to throw up your exposition. But I guess I was looking for more exposition to be spread throughout. It felt, maybe that's what I'm explaining. It felt like a big exposition dump.
It felt like a lot
Big,
all at once.
huge, like massive.
No, and I agree with that. Like I said, because normally we would get in a little bit of exposition and a little bit of action, a little bit of drama, a little bit of family bonding. That was seemed to be the formula, in all of the episodes up until this one. There was no real action to speak of, but it was a lot of, like we said, a lot of exposition, a lot of explaining. Could it have been delivered in a different way? Sure, I'm pretty sure it could have been. They could have sprinkled some stuff over the next episode or two, but I feel like since they did it this way, we don't have to ask the questions anymore as to who this is, why are they doing this, what's going on. So that way we can continue on with the story in the second half of the season and just propel the story and push the story forward. So me looking at the show, I don't think, because of the stuff that they had to go through or the stuff that they went through in the first 3 episodes, I feel like, because up until we got this episode, everything seemed to be moving at a decent pace, right? So I'm trying to visualize where they could have put any of this information in the previous 3 episodes without deviating from the actual story. Now, I know that there was a scene where Flynn asked, what was the jackpot? What happened? And they refused to answer her. Now, in episode 4, now they're answering her, I guess, because they feel bad that the device is, causing her health complications. So I don't know if
We don't
that's
really
why they
get that
decide.
answer.
Right, because when they were walking into the cemetery, Wilf was saying, well, what are you doing here? Ash said she has a right to know, a moral right. So before, I felt like Ash didn't like Flynn at all. I felt like Ash didn't care for Flynn or Wilf at that point. And so now
Big vibe.
It seems like Ash is coming around and she's feeling a little bit differently about Flynn. She wants to help her. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if it's because, Flynn is dealing with these health issues
in the future.
But so they get into the cemetery. They talk about the jackpot. There's these holograms that Wilf has to activate for some reason. So I guess nobody can just go into the cemetery and just be like, oh, I want to learn more about the jackpot. So Ash sends him the code, so he pulls up the hologram visuals and everything, and so they go into exactly what happened and why it's called the jackpot. And so Flynn asks why they call it the jackpot, and we'll say, gallows humor, basically, something is horrible, so the only way you can make it seem a little bit palatable is to try to make light of the situation. He said the jackpot sounds better than, the apocalypse or the end of the world or something like that. So, and I actually took notes on this. So in 2039, this is 6 or 7 years after we meet Flynn. So Flynn is, I think, in like 2032. And so in 2039, there's a hack in the electrical grid in the United States. There's a nationwide blackout that lasts months. But not only does it happen in the States, it also happens around the rest of the world. Rolling blackouts everywhere, months without power. In 2041, this is only 2 years later after that, there is a plague called what they call it, the blood plague. It's infected all of the people, and it fills the organs and intestines with blood until the body explodes, killing.
It's not the way you want to go.
No, it's not the way you want to go, but that kills millions of people. And they said over the next 4 decades or so, they didn't give a starting year, but they said for the next 4 decades or so, there was just basically agricultural destruction, crops dying, famine, animals dying out, just sort
Real
of
end of the world stuff.
real end of the world stuff. And so that happens, like they said, for about 40 or so years, and that kills billions of people. And then after all of that happens, there is a domestic terrorist attack in Spring Creek, North Carolina, which we find out, like we said in a couple of other episodes, we don't know exactly where Flynn lives, but we know it had to be somewhere in the South because the Mercs came from Tennessee and they were driving down. So it couldn't have been that far. But so we find out that Flynn is from Spring Hill, North Carolina, and Spring Creek, North Carolina. And so there's why Spring Creek has a nuclear missile silo? I don't know, but apparently there was
I'm gonna put it in Spring Creek. Oh, I got a spot. Don't worry about it. It's over there down by the creek.
But so so they have that domestic terrorist attack. It happens in Spring Creek. And they blow up a missile silo, which blows up a nuclear missile. And so that we don't know the actual impact of all of it, because in the simulation it shows like the wind from the blast and everything, and it's starting to affect Flynn. So Flynn says, make it stop. And so they cut the connection. Flynn wakes up back in the trailer, and the last thing that they say is Connor and Burton have asked that they get bodies. They get peripherals in the future, so they can go in and they can sort of keep tabs on what's going on. They say that it's, to protect Flynn because they don't want Flynn to get even more hurt or anything like that. But Burton has admitted, it's kind of because I wanted to see what it's like out there too. So,
goddamn right, he has it right.
so
now we're getting simmed inside the sim that's not a sim. Right. It's semi. Semi. It's semi. Well, because now who's gonna watch them while they're all simming?
Well, there's Leon.
The drones.
No, the drones aren't gonna watch. Leon. There's Leon, and there's the other friends as well. So.
Okay, we're gonna need a perimeter to go all the way around this trailer because we're now logging into the Matrix as a group.
I mean, essentially, yeah.
What? Essentially, this episode, I guess, I will say this, Spider. You have convinced me of the necessity of having this explained in a different way, like later on, like slowly. Like there were elements in the show that were good. I'm not going to say that there wasn't, but at the same time, massive dump of exposition. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. But the question, let you finish your wrap up before we ask the
that's
question.
Just, but just to answer your questions as to like what it was that I appreciated, there's just this additional explanation, because those are some of the questions that I had in the first 3 episodes. Well, just like Flynn said, what is the jackpot? What happened? And one of the questions that we still haven't gotten an answer to so much as to the way it's given Flynn that answer. The question is, what happened to all the people? Where are all the people? Because we see Flynn is
you answered that question.
Well, Flynn was walking to get away from, but I mean, we still have some people, because remember in the first episode that we're at a party and there were a bunch of people at the party. So, and obviously there are people working at the research institute. There are people at this sort of, private club that Lev is at where they're having, lunch or whatever. So there are people there.
There's just a lot less people.
Right. And
It's
so
almost like
I think it's probably worse than that, but so it begs to, I guess you wonder. We know that the population is reduced because of the plague, because of the famine, because of all of everything that happened with the jackpot. So, how is it that these people survived? The people that we have
uh,
currently, how is it that they
I think they
survived?
call them. I think they call them bunkers. I think they were bunkered down.
I don't know. Maybe we'll have to see.
Well, we got to get into that. Hey, this is only on Earth, okay? This thing that happened right here, that was a whole universe. That was many
It's also true.
universes.
Also true.
Hey, man, was this episode of Peripheral from Amazon Prime? Was it super? Was episode 4 super? Spider, was it a super episode?
It was informational, but I won't say that it
Massively.
was. I won't say that it was super. Um, just
Why did it miss the
the
mark?
the reasoning behind having all of this exposition in just one episode. Like I said, they found creative ways because not only did we get the information and exposition and everything, we got the insight into what Dr. Newland is planning on doing. She talked about Lev and him turning his back on Yuri, and they had an assembler swarm go out to basically track Yuri's DNA and the DNA of all of his family members. And because we saw in the previous episode, Dr. Newland does a lot of work with bees. She can alter the pheromones within someone's body to where it turns the bees aggressive and they attack that person until they die. So there's another type of thing that they can do where they track the DNA and they send a whole swarm of bees after somebody, like a drone attack, but they're bee drones. Um, and
That's
so we
horrible.
get the threat from Dr. Newland telling Lev that, since then, our assembler swarm has been looking for the next, strand of DNA to attack. And of course, they do the camera shot to the mug of tea that Lev had been drinking from. And when Dr. Newland leaves, don't know exactly how she did it because she was never on that side of the table, but she swiped the
She's
teacup.
snatching up tea glasses. She's snatching up teacups and glasses. It's like, she good.
Yeah,
Like, ta-da.
but
Klepto.
there you go. But like I said, so even though we get all of this exposition, we see the relationship between Lev and Dr. Newland and how one being of the Klept and one being of the Research Institute, like they said, that's that power balance. One can't have more power than the other, but we see that Lev still has the upper hand because obviously Dr. Newland came to Lev because she feels that he has some sort of insight on where Alita is. But because Alita has apparently stolen something, until Dr. Newland can get that back, she's sort of in what's the
Limbo
word I'm looking
state.
for? She's in a I'm losing my words. What's the word I'm looking for? Basically, she's in a emergency mode. She's trying to figure out exactly where this is because if it's the ability to create new stubs, or we again still don't know exactly what it is that they took, but Dr. Newland wants it back, and
Of course she does.
she's presenting that it's to maintain the balance that they have between the Cleft and Met and the Research Institute. And so
Well,
also
she's not wrong because if she don't get it back and she know that they stole it, she can really rain hell down upon them.
true,
And you're forcing my hand not to maintain the balance instead of just giving me my stuff back.
right.
So if you borrowed, let me look in the camera. If you borrowed my stuff, come on and give it back. Never mind, you can keep it.
But so we also
You know,
get the first time we see Dr. Newland in this episode, she's sort of replicating Daniel. So she made it very clear
Yeah.
in episode 3.
After she killed him.
Right, after she killed him to make sure that he didn't reveal exactly what was stolen. But after in episode 3, where she basically expressed to him, like, I want you to work for me not because you're afraid of me, but because you're loyal to me. And so, is there some sort of underlying relationship between Dr. Newland and Daniel? Because if you have someone who, or is it just because of the fact that she felt that he was so loyal to her that she took his consciousness from the last time he was alive, put it into this android, programmed it to walk, talk, sound, stand, carry
Like
himself
him.
just like him, you know, because she said that the android was too agreeable. And she was like, I want him to question my judgment. I want him to not, just blindly do anything that I tell him to do. So it's like, I don't know, just recreating Daniel in that sense just seemed a little bit weird to me.
Very weird. Why'd you kill him? As you thought he was that loyal, you should have known he wasn't going to talk. How about you send your android, robot, cyborg type of remote control thing to kill them and save him, or even just save him and run
And
through
get
a
out.
wall and carry him to medical. But you kill him. You cut
Right.
his throat open. He sprayed water like a Six Flags water park theme park, and I don't know if that we can get away with that. You might have to take that out. But water was everywhere, and now Daniel's dead. Daniel's son.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, the episode, in my opinion, I don't think the episode was super. Like I said, it was informational. We got a little bit of look into our different characters. We see that Connor is, he's devoted himself to helping out the Fishers. We see Tommy's still, he's a cop, but he's still a friend. We see Burton is not above lying to his friends. We see that Flynn is,
It's amazing you made that comparison like that. He's a cop, but he's still a friend, and Burton has no problem lying to his friends.
But I mean, that's basically the way that they framed it. So he's doing he's fulfilling
He's
his
also still a
responsibility.
cop.
Yeah, he's fulfilling his responsibility as a cop to try to investigate what's going on. But obviously, he knows that his friends are doing something, and he has concern because you are shaking hands with the number one drug supplier in our county or whatever. And so I just want to come check on you, be like, look.
At the same time, that's false pretenses. Because once I tell you something, you go revert right back to cop mode. Like,
we don't know. He might try to be like, look, whatever deal you got going on, look, just go ahead, and we want you to not get too deep into it. It's not that he's going to immediately turn into cop, but he's like, if it forces my hand, I may have to arrest you.
Oh my God. You're trying to get these kids locked up.
I'm not saying that they should reveal to him, because no, you have 12 dead bodies buried in your backyard. No, don't tell him what's going on.
What's the protocol when you have mercenaries coming up on your land to kill you? Can you not defend yourself?
I believe you can defend yourself, but then at that point, you have to notify the authorities that somebody came on your property trying to kill you. I mean, it's the same way now. If you have somebody come into your house, they break into your house, and you're defending your property and your family in your house, and you shoot the intruder, you kill them. You can't just take them out in the back and bury them. You have to notify the authorities.
I don't want my garden to have that type of fertilizer on it. No. That's not the tomatoes. No.
No, that's not how you want to bring tomatoes. But
no. Those are blood tomatoes. You don't want those.
But I know you're reserving your comments for the end of the season. You're gonna.
I am reserving my comment for the end of the season. But I will say this: this show is doing so much. It's doing so much that when's the next episode?
Friday.
Yeah, of course it is. Say, I'll wait. I'll wait for them, and you guys should wait for them too.
It's like we've been saying. We get into this
This is why
pattern
I
of
was
all of these
reserving my.
shows.
No, I'm saying this is why, the reason why I was reserving, because I wanted to see the progression of where we were going.
So do you feel like the shows that we've reviewed before, where you've reviewed it or you've given your opinion episode by episode, do you feel like it's better for you to wait until the end?
No, I think there hasn't been really many, and you guys can challenge this if you choose to. Many of them that I've been up and down with. I think I've been pretty consistent with
On
whatever
whether
my
you
views were.
like something or not like it.
Well, it's just my opinion, and it's more than welcome to change at any given point in
No,
time. But
and
at
I'm
the
not saying
same
that it can't.
time,
I'm just saying that even for those that you didn't like from episode one, you would still, after episode one, you would say that it's not super. So I'm just wondering if you feel that you reserve your comments for the end of the season, if you felt that that's a better or a more accurate assumption or assessment of the entire show
for this one,
for this one.
for
Okay.
this show,
But I just think that because we've gotten into this pattern of these mini series, these shortened seasons, 8 episodes, 9 episodes, 6 episodes, you end up with these episodes like this one where you have to put everything
the
all
next
into one
transition
episode.
down.
But I do appreciate that hopefully this gives us more room on the back end in order to resolve issues, because we don't have to take time out of our future episodes in order to explain what's going on. But we'll have to see.
No, we still got a lot of explaining what's going on. We're still gonna get into the nuts and bolts of why the world is what it is in the future. Clearly, some people have money and some people still don't. The
Right.
air is cleaner, and we can tell by what the small girls that Wolf had to run through screaming out his sister's name, or
Right.
adopted sister, or just somebody he may have met in that circle of scavenging. Uh, you know, we get a little bit. I'm pretty sure we're going to get more of that. Probably all the way up until they get to the orphanage, which we'll understand that they got adopted. And I'm pretty sure we're going to get some of their childhood to understand how they got to the point that they got into. I still don't really know if Alita's a computer android or not. There's a question about it in the back of my mind, thinking to myself, is she?
Well,
I'm
I
not
mean,
sure.
she's well, because she's not a peripheral, because they pulled out the sort of the like the CPUs, the brains, the actual like components of the peripherals that they found in that room. They pulled out their sort of processing units, but for Alita had a tracker in her. And so, like they said in this episode, because she pulled the tracker out, she's now removed her boosted immunity. So we don't know how long she's going to survive. So I still think she's a human, but that doesn't explain as to why she was able to
Wait a
project
minute.
herself as a child in the first episode.
And that's what I wanted to remind you of, because in that first episode, she was sitting right there next to Wolf as a child. And
Right.
then she said goodbye and kind of consciously left while the body was still there.
Mm-hmm.
So we
So-
still got to get into exactly that and what's going on with that situation.
So the
There's a lot
adult
more to get
Alita
into,
is a
too.
human, but she has peripheral of her younger self that apparently doesn't like to wear shoes.
I forgot about that. That's weird. Yeah,
Yeah.
she liked to walk the earth barefooted. It's a lot. It's a lot. And the next
No, it is a
edition
lot,
dump.
but it's a lot because I mean, it's going to be a lot when you have a show that takes place in both the past.
Why
and
are
the
we
future.
doing this? Why are we squeezing all these things into one? Like, we couldn't have like dripped this out a little more and milked it for like the whole first season.
I don't think we could have, because I think it would have taken away from whatever the conflict that they have that's coming. because you obviously things are starting to ramp up. We have Dr. Newland threatening the Klept. Of course, Lev said the Klept was able to organize under this one founding principle: you attack one of us, you attack all of us, and then you suffer accordingly. So if she comes after Lev and his family as part of the Klept, she has the whole entire Klept to deal with after that. The Klept takes out Dr. Newland, then we might have a fight between the Klept and the Research Institute. Again, we talked about this three-sided room. If one extends their boundaries, which Dr. Newland would, attacking a member of the Klept, then the whole thing collapses. The whole thing collapses to the end of the world. So we know that in the coming episodes, we're going to have a major increase in aggressiveness and conflict. Like you said, Pickett is still going to try to figure out what's going on with the Fishers. That may have another, firefight or some type of battle in Spring Creek. So things are going to ramp up in these next episodes. So to have this intensity ramp up and then stop because you have to explain what the jackpot is, or to have it ramp up and then stop because you have to explain, who the Klept are or who the Research Institute is. I think that's taken away from the action and from the progression and where the story is going in future episodes. So I think if they were to sprinkle it out in later episodes, I think it would just be like progressing and then stepping back so you could explain this, and then going back forward and then stepping back so you could explain this. So getting it all out now in this episode, I think it prevents them from having to do that.
I respect it. It's just jarring. That's all. I understand it has to happen.
I understand that and I agree with that. I don't like the process. I don't like the way that they did it. I just feel like I feel like it's too much. It's too, for the way that the show was set up, and like we said, the formula that they had in the first 3 episodes, and
the pacing was
deviate from all of that and just basically hit the brakes and just go at a snail's pace for this episode. A lot of dialogue, a lot of exposition, just a lot of backstory on everything. Excuse me. And so it was just, like you say, it's just jarring because now we're in an episode to where it's like, okay, I'm not as into this as I was in the previous 3 episodes. And now I'm just basically sitting and intently listening. I'm getting a history lesson now rather than getting progression in the story. And like you said, I'm not gonna understand that. And I can understand why probably a lot of people wouldn't like that, because it just, like I said, it just slows everything down.
And we'll have to see.
We'll have to see.
Because I want to be fair about these supers. I want to make sure that everyone knows when it is or when it isn't. And I want to be fair and say, you have to wait and see.
But if you watch episode 4 of The Peripheral on Amazon Prime Video, let us know what you thought about the episode. Let us know what you thought about our review of the episode. Leave us a comment. But remember, if you like the video, go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you can be notified when we have new episodes that go out. If you want to get the audio podcast, just search for All Things Super on your major favorite podcast streaming service. I switched that around, but you know what I mean. And if you want to join in on the conversation, you can tweet at us at ATSuperPod.
And we like to read in the comments. Listen, don't you apologize for nothing that you say in that whole segment, because when they meet you and they can say it forwards and backwards, then they can say something. Because I can't say it forwards or backwards.
But we got 4 episodes left. We're going to see what episodes 5 through 8 have in store for us. But until then, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode.